One of the greatest misconceptions among Christians today is the belief that the Great Tribulation will be difficult but manageable. Many grossly underestimate the sheer scale of suffering, destruction, and chaos that will engulf the world during this period. The words of Jesus in Matthew 24:21 leave no room for such underestimation. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. This is not mere hyperbole. It is a sobering declaration of a future event that will surpass all the catastrophes of human history combined. Consider the fact that during this period, the four horsemen of the apocalypse will be unleashed upon the earth. Consider that angels will be more active on earth than at any other time in history. Reflect on the fact that the events unfolding will be so severe that they will cause complete and utter silence in heaven for half an hour. Revelation 8:1 states, "And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour." Consider that the Antichrist will be in full dominance, exalting himself as God. His mark will become a part of everyday society, where no one will be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. Think about the fact that the false prophet will be directing the world to worship the Antichrist, performing great signs and deceiving many. Ponder the devastation described in Revelation 8:7-9. A third of the trees were burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. A third of the creatures in the sea, those with life, died. This level of ecological disaster is unimaginable yet certain during the Great Tribulation. Reflect on the terrifying truth that angels who have been locked away for thousands of years, awaiting their appointed time, will be released to bring further judgment upon the earth. Consider the horror of Apollyon, the destroyer, and his army of demonic locusts, as described in Revelation 9:3-11. These locusts will torment humanity with unbearable pain. Matthew 24:22 states that unless those days were shortened, no flesh would survive. This statement underscores the critical truth that humanity's survival during the tribulation is entirely dependent on God Almighty. Matthew 24:15-22. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Today we'll unpack this passage and explore what it means not just for those in Judea, but for believers everywhere as we look toward the fulfillment of God's ultimate plan for humanity. Matthew 24:15-16. Jesus begins with an urgent call to action. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Notice the immediacy of the command. Jesus doesn't say to take your time or think about what to do. He says to flee, to run, to leave everything behind and seek safety in the mountains. Why such urgency? What could possibly require such a rapid and radical response? The abomination of desolation isn't just any event. It's a pivotal moment that signals the onset of great tribulation, a time of unparalleled suffering and chaos. The urgency is clear. Matthew 24, verse 17 and 18. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Imagine being in the middle of a task, caught completely off guard, and knowing that even a moment's delay could mean the difference between life and death. It's not just about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's about the suddenness and severity of what's to come. To fully grasp the severity of Jesus' warning, it's essential to explore the concept of the abomination of desolation. This term merges two powerful ideas: an abomination, which refers to something profoundly detestable or offensive, and desolation, which signifies total devastation or emptiness. Together, they depict a grievous act that defiles what is sacred, resulting in utter ruin. The phrase originates from the prophecies of Daniel, who envisioned a time when the temple, the most sacred site in Judaism, would be defiled in a manner so appalling that it would represent blatant defiance against God. Some scholars believe this prophecy was fulfilled in 167 BC, when Antiochus IV Epiphanes, a Greek ruler, desecrated the Jewish temple by setting up an altar to Zeus and offering pigs as sacrifices, a deeply offensive act to the Jewish people and a direct attack on their faith. But when Jesus speaks of the abomination of desolation, he points to a future event, one that would occur not in the distant past, but near the very end of days. This leads us to consider the implications of his words for the end times. While many scholars believe a partial fulfillment of this prophecy occurred in AD 70, when Roman forces destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, the ultimate fulfillment is still to come. The severity of the tribulation described by Jesus in Matthew 24 suggests a world-changing event that will precede his return. Jesus' prophecy places the abomination of desolation within an end-of-days context, directly linked to the Great Tribulation that will precede his second coming. Jesus warns that when the abomination appears, those in Judea must flee to the mountains without delay, because the level of danger will be unlike anything humanity has ever faced. We can see echoes of this warning in the book of Revelation, where the rise of the Antichrist and the desecration of the holy place are part of a broader narrative of global chaos and divine judgment. The Apostle Paul also touches on this in 2 Thessalonians 2, 3-4, describing how the man of sin will sit in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. This is the ultimate act of blasphemy and defiance against the true God, marking the pinnacle of rebellion itself. This future abomination will be a definitive sign that the end is near, ushering in a period of tribulation that will test the faith and endurance of all who believe. The context of Matthew 24:14, where Jesus speaks of the gospel being preached to all nations, sets the stage for this global climactic event. The end is not simply an isolated moment, but the culmination of human history and the fulfillment of God's redemptive plan. Jesus' command to flee to the mountains around Judea is rich with both practical and symbolic meaning. Practically, the rugged terrain surrounding Jerusalem has historically served as a sanctuary in times of extreme danger. From the caves where David sought refuge from King Saul's relentless pursuit to the fortified strongholds utilized by the Maccabees during their revolt against foreign oppression, these mountains have repeatedly offered protection and shelter. The rocky, difficult-to-navigate landscape provided a natural barrier against advancing enemies, making it an ideal place to hide and survive. In the context of the end times, fleeing to these mountains symbolizes not just a retreat, but a desperate, all-out escape from impending doom, where survival depends on swift action. Let's broaden our perspective and look at the Great Tribulation from a worldwide viewpoint. The Great Tribulation is not just a series of isolated events affecting a particular region. It is a global upheaval that will touch every corner of the earth. This period will unfold during the time when the Antichrist and the false prophet are at the center stage, wielding immense influence and power over the world. During this dark era, the mark of the beast becomes prevalent, a symbol of allegiance to the Antichrist. This mark, described in Revelation 13, will be required for anyone wishing to buy or sell, symbolizing the economic and spiritual control exerted by these forces of evil. The mark will be placed on the right hand or forehead, a physical sign of submission and worship of the beast, aligning those who receive it against God and His people. The Great Tribulation will also see the unfolding of the terrifying visions described in Revelation, including the rise of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These horsemen represent conquest, war, famine, and death, each bringing a wave of devastation that affects the entire globe. As we reflect on these events, it is crucial to understand that the Great Tribulation is not just a future period of despair, but also a profound reminder of God's ultimate sovereignty and His plan for redemption. God's judgments, though fierce, are part of His larger plan to restore creation, to cleanse it from sin, and to establish His kingdom in its fullness. This time of intense suffering will ultimately give way to the glorious return of Christ, who will establish His reign of peace, justice, and righteousness. It will be a time when human suffering reaches its zenith, and yet it will also be a time of divine intervention. The conclusion of the Great Tribulation is not the end, but the glorious beginning of a new era marked by the return of Jesus Christ. As we look toward this monumental event, it is crucial to understand the profound significance of the Mount of Olives in biblical prophecy. Geographically, the Mount of Olives is a ridge situated just east of Jerusalem, across the Kidron Valley. It is part of the Judean region and holds great importance in the events and instructions given in Matthew 24. This location is not only central to the narrative of the Great Tribulation, but also to the culmination of world history, which will unfold in this very region. Therefore, we must pay close attention to what happens in this part of the world. Zechariah 14:4 gives us a vivid picture of this future event. "And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south." This prophecy reveals that when Jesus returns, He will descend upon the Mount of Olives, triggering a dramatic geographical transformation. A great valley will be created as the mountain splits in two. For believers, the return of Jesus is not just a future event. It is the ultimate fulfillment of God's redemptive plan for humanity. It is the moment when justice will prevail, when the brokenness of this world will be healed, and when the righteous reign of Christ will begin. Christians everywhere yearn for His return because it represents the consummation of their faith, the day when they will see their Savior face to face, when all suffering will cease, and when eternal peace will be established. The desire for Christ's return is not merely a wish to escape the trials of this world, but a deep-seated hope rooted in the promise of His word and the assurance of His love. Exalting Jesus is at the heart of this anticipation. He is the King of kings and Lord of lords, and His return will be a triumphant declaration of His sovereignty over all creation. The vision of Christ descending upon the Mount of Olives, His feet touching the earth as the mountain splits in response, is a powerful reminder of His majesty and the certainty of His reign. As we witness the unfolding of world events, It is vital to keep our eyes fixed on the Mount of Olives and the promise it holds. This region, steeped in biblical history, is where the final chapters of the world's story will unfold. The Great Tribulation will lead to the ultimate victory of Christ over evil, and his return will mark the beginning of his glorious kingdom.